What's up guys, Kudou-kun here. I decided to finally take the plunge and get myself a decent microphone, so I'm gonna sound pretty different from here on out. Listening back to these recordings, I sound a lot higher pitched than I used to. So this video is gonna double sort of as a mic test and also a set review. Please leave me your thoughts on the new mic in the comment section below, if it's too loud, too quiet. If there's anything that you want me to do to it at all, then please let me know as early as possible. And here we go. So I've been out of the game for quite a while, but ReZero is one of the sets that I really had my eyes on, because ReZero is one of the few anime that I kind of invested myself in last year. I sort of got into it through peer pressure, but I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't finish it, but that's besides the point. I knew like 5 episodes in this was going to get itself a Weiss set, because this anime is waifu central. Even the tiny hamburger-eating cat thing has a really creepy following. But we try not to talk to those people. I was sort of a Priscilla guy myself, which may or may not make me a huge masochist. But sometimes the pain is just worth it, you know? And it's probably a good time to get down to business now. So here's how this is gonna work. They decided to leave green out of the set for some reason, so there's only 3 colors. Normally I only do 4 cards from each color, but this time I'm gonna do 5 cards from each color to help compensate. And if you guys enjoy the review, you may leave it a like, and if I get 100 likes on this video and somebody reminds me in a timely fashion, then I will do a follow-up to this video doing 15 more cards from the set. And I feel like I say this every time, guys, but you'll really want that second part because there's a lot of good cards I had to leave out. Like, when I had to narrow this down to 5, I ended up just cutting a bunch of random cards without even looking at them because there's so many good cards I want to talk about, and I trust you guys to want a follow-up video. So without further ado, let's begin the waifu wars with yellow. Our first yellow is Felt Candidate for Royal Election. Each of the royal candidates ended up getting their own card, and the level 3 is obviously Felt because she had the most screen time. She's only 85, but if you happen to have 3 other characters with magic or weapon, by the way, pretty much 90% of the set is going to be magic or weapon, she goes up to 10.5, which is pretty decent. Whenever you attack, you can search your deck for up to 1 magic or weapon character and put it in stock, which is pretty unique and I think pretty powerful. Now, this effect would be nearly worthless if this were some kind of climax effect or it made you discard a card from your hand or something. But I think the fact that you can do this without paying anything really for it is great, because it lets you look through your deck pretty much every time you attack. It lets you thin your deck out by 1 card every time you attack, and it lets you fill up your stock, which makes it a lot easier to pay for encores or whatever. It's also useful if you're pairing your yellow with blue, but in due time. Its last ability also isn't a climax combo, which is great, and you can pay 2 stock to make it so when one of your other characters attacks and their damage is cancelled, you can deal 1 damage after the attack. On its own, not the most powerful ability, but when you pair it with the fact that this card is continuously gaining you stock from your deck, that's pretty darn good. Another neat little card is Crush Negotiating with the Alliance. She's a 5,000. If you have 3 other characters with weapon or magic, then she's a 7,000, which is respectable. What makes her unique is you can discard 2 cards from your hands before you attack to attack one of your opponent's back row characters instead. This is a pretty rare ability to find, and it's really good for dealing with your opponent setting up a change or just getting rid of a very powerful back row character. Probably not 100% useful, but even just paying 1 to get the 7,000 is fine. Felix, probably one of the most loved and hated waifus, got probably one of the best level 1s we've seen in a long time. Or I guess I've seen in a long time, because I've been gone for so long. Yay! So your Crush in the front row center slot gets plus 1500 power, which makes the Crush we were just looking at a pretty sick card. Sick? Like she has a virus? Like a Crush card virus? Ha 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 ha! Please like and subscribe. Characters in front of this card get a natural plus 500, so you're actually boosting it by 2,000 by having one of these in the back. If you manage to get 2 of these on the back row, then your middle Crush gets plus 3,000, plus another 1,000 to make it 4,000. Makes the previous Crush look pretty sick, because even without the plus 2,000, it makes it go up to a whopping 9,000, and then another 2,000 on top of that if you... Oh man, it's just hitting me how good the other Crush can be. And believe it or not, neither of those effects are why we're looking at this card. Its final effect, which you could totally run this in a deck that doesn't use Crush at all, and this would still be good. You can pay 2 and rest this to heal 1 from the clock. Holy cow. Starting at level 1, you have a free card, no stock, mind you, and you can pay 2 every turn to heal 1 card from your clock. If you have 2 of these in the back row, you can heal 2 cards from the clock every single turn. That is worth looking at. Okay, guys, now we're going to take a look at my personal favorite card in the set, Reinhardt the Sword Saint. Now, this card's effect is so lengthy, we can't even see Reinhardt's beautiful face, so I'm going to go through this step by step and explain why I think this is the most fun card in the set, and if I were going to play the set, I would build it specifically around this card. First effect, Bodyguard. If you don't know what Bodyguard is, it pretty much means that if this card is in your front row center slot and standing, your opponent, when they declare attacks, have to declare a frontal attack against this card. They can't side attack, they can't attack any of the other slots, they have to frontal attack this card if they declare an attack. Next, it has Experience. If the level of all the character cards in your level zone equals 6 or more, then this gets plus 10,000 power and the following 5 abilities. As long as you don't control any other characters, okay? This guy is your one-man army, he's your win condition, that's just how it plays. So I just want you to keep in mind, he's a 20,000 on top of everything I'm about to say. He cannot be the target of auto abilities on characters, so no suicides pretty much, no moving him from the fields with a fate character or whatnot. He cannot be targeted by those abilities. During battles involving this character, your opponent, just your opponent, cannot play events or backups from their hand. When a character battles this and becomes reversed, you may choose to send that character to memory after you've reversed it. When this card battles another card and reverses it, you may discard 1 card from your hands to deal 1 damage to your opponent. And finally, at the start of your opponent's attack phase, you may move this character to any slot in your front row. So if your opponent has played an effect, like Nagato or something, to move this card, it can get right back in position and do exactly what you meant for it to do in the first place. Oh, Reinhardt, my baby. Priscilla levels of love right now. So let me break it down for you guys, okay? What you do is you have this character in your front row center slot, and during your opponent's turn, this is a 20,000 that they have to attack into. 20,000 is going to step over, I'm going to say just about every card in the game. And every time their character is reversed, you can choose to remove it from the game if you want to. You're mainly going to use this if your opponent has Encore. If your opponent attacks with something that has Encore, you can remove that from the game. And you can discard 1 card from your hands to deal 1 damage to them. So you can deal a potential 3 damage to them on their turn and also remove their entire front row from the game. Sure, if you're a professional player and you really want to nitpick this card, there's a lot of things you can nitpick, but this opens up an idea for a really, really fun deck type, and that is low-level rush. So what you're going to do, right, is you're going to choose not to remove stuff from the game, okay? That's bad. I've gone over this before. It's bad to remove your opponent's stuff from the game if you don't have to. So you're going to reverse your opponent's front row, and if any of them live, you're going to play low-level zeros and stuff from your hand. Wait a minute, Kudou, doesn't that get rid of his ability? That's the point. You can still attack with all 3 front row characters, and if you play 2 low-level characters aside Reinhardt, you can actually make them kill themselves, and then you're still attacking with 3 characters, getting that 3 stock, and when your opponent's turn comes up, as long as you're not saving your characters, this is still the 20,000, and your opponent still has to deal with it. Oh my gosh, this is such a cool ability. And even if you don't want to do that, if you really don't want to do that, then you can just put this out on the front row, let it be dumb, and let your opponent attack into it. Just save up all the cards in your hand, and every time your opponent gets reversed, just discard a card, let them take 1 damage, and that's it. One thing I want to point out, I don't think I'm going to look at it here, but there's an event card that lets you look for pairs. If you haven't watched the show, Reinhardt pairs up with Felt, so you can actually do a combo where you build a deck around this, and you put in Reinhardt and Felt, like low-level, like level 0 Felts. And then you can also put in Felix and Crush, the two I was talking about before, and you can build a deck around those four and have a really easy search engine with the event that lets you search for those pairs. It's pretty sick. I recommend looking into it. It should be pretty easy to find, but I've got to move on now. I've spent way too long talking about this card. So, by complete coincidence, I found a Priscilla that I'd like to talk about. We're going to look at this Priscilla and Aldebaran together as a pair, because they kind of work off of each other. So first up, Aldebaran, he's only a 3500, but if you have Priscilla candidate for Royal Election, then he actually becomes a 6500, which for a free card isn't bad. He also gives your Priscilla plus 1500 power and +1 level, which is, of course, decent. The level actually matters in this case, and we're going to look at why. So Priscilla, if she is a level higher than her battle opponent, she actually gets another plus 2000 power, which is great. That means with the plus 1500 power she's getting from Aldebaran, that's plus 3500, she becomes an 8500 if your opponent is still playing level 1s or level 0s. Its other effect, though, is even better. So the character facing her gets the following effect. If the level of the character opposite of this is higher than the level of this card, this cannot front attack. So what that's basically saying is Priscilla can't be frontal attacked by level 0s naturally, and if you have Aldebaran in play, she can't be frontal attacked by level 1s. You can also just go completely off the rails, play a second Aldebaran, and just have her not be able to be front attacked by level 2s either. Pretty fun strategy, I say. Keep in mind, this pair can also be searched with that event I was talking about before, so if you really wanted to try putting this in your deck too, you totally could. Next, we're going to get on to looking at some reds, and pretty much every red card we have to look at is Ram except for this one, so we're going to go ahead and look at Beatrice first. First effect is if all of your characters are magic or weapon, then this gets plus 2000 power, becoming a natural 11,000. When it's placed from hand to stage, you can heal one from the clock. And finally, if this card has its recollection cost, which is having a copy of Forbidden Library in your memory, then you can pay 1 at the start of your opponent's attack phase to have this card switch places with another card and get plus 1000 attack, which is decent. That puts this up to a 12,000, and it lets you move this card in front of something you know it can kill and move something else to safety. Oh, Jesus, why are all these effects so long? Okay, then. When she comes into play, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 in your hand, and discard the other 2. When you play its climax, Natsuki Subaru Decoy Operation, and this is in the front row, then you can take 2 cards from your opponent's waiting room and return them back to the deck and have them shuffle, potentially adding plus 2 damage to their deck, which is nice, and if you have multiple of these in your front row, then the effect triggers for every single one of them. On top of that, this gets a pretty beefy plus 3000 power, going up to 12,500, which is very respectable. Finally, when this attacks, you can pay 2 and discard 1 card from your hand to deal 1 damage to your opponent when the attack is over, and that's a really good effect, especially because you don't need climax to trigger it like you do cards like Haruhi Troublemaker with Someday in the Rain. 2 and discarding a card from your hand is a little costly, but like I said before, it kind of makes up for the fact that you don't need a climax to trigger it. There's one more level 3 here we want to look at in red. It's Rem and Rem Bath Time, which is, they know their audience. Unfortunately, the effect text is covering up anything good about this card. Oh well. So they did something really interesting with red here. They actually made a lot of cards that focus on you playing Ram, Rem, and Roswal, so you can kind of do like a Roswal's Mansion deck where you only have Roswal, Ram, and Rem cards, and just leave Subaru and the other characters out of it completely, which I'm actually really down for. So if all of your cards are Ram, Rem, and Roswal, then this becomes an 11,000 naturally, which is okay. When this card attacks, you can reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a Ram, Rem, or Roswal, then you can deal damage to your opponent equal to the level of that character. This doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost any stock. You don't have to discard anything from your hand, which makes this effect a lot better than the other one. The downside, of course, being that you have to be putting it into a Ram, Rem, Roswal deck, which isn't that big of a deal at all. And finally, when you reverse a character, you can pay 1 stock and you can put one card from your opponent's waiting room on top of their deck. So red is just all about adding extra damage to your opponent's deck, and I love it. This card is definitely the best level 3 in red in my opinion. Probably what you want to build your deck around. So another Rem, sort of in the same vein, is if all of your characters are Rem, or Roswell, then this is a 5500, which, you guys know how I feel about level 1 5500s, but hear me out. So when this card reverses a character, if all of your characters are Rem, Roswell, and you happen to have your Climax in play, her Climax is as a big sister, by the way, you can pay 1 stock and put 2 Rem, or Ronald McDonald's back into your hand from your discard pile, which is great. We love thinning out our discard pile, we love filling up our hands, just good. And finally, we have a Ram card. Oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. Ram, Power of Clairvoyance, it's your level 0 assist. All of your other characters with Rem, or Ronald Weasley in the name get plus 500 power. Pretty basic staple for a deck like this. When this card comes into play, or whenever you play a card with Rem, or Ross Delgado, you can look at the top card of your deck and put it back. And finally, you can pay 1 stock and discard 1 Climax from your hands to put 1 Rem, or Walpurgis Noct into your hand from your discard pile. I don't know if a Climax is necessarily worth it, but if you drew too many, it could be. The last color we have to look at is blue, and before we hit the waifus, we have to look at Subaru. There's only one Subaru we're gonna look at, so let's look at it. This is the level 3 Subaru, and before you ask, yes, he does have the power to reset the field. These effect texts are gonna be the death of me. Bodyguard, I already explained that. At the start of your Climax phase, if you have 1 copy of this card removed from the game, then you can choose one of your magic or weapon characters and give them the effect that after they attack, they can deal 1 extra damage. Now for the Big Daddy effect. At the start of the Encore step, if Rebirth by Death is in your memory, and this is reversed, you can pay the cost. And I will tell you the cost now. Pay 7 stock. Discard an Oni-like Fanatical Methods card from your hand. Then discard 4 other cards from your hand. Send this card to the memory. Once you do that, you can heal every single card from your clock. Then every player puts all the cards they have on the field back in their hand. Then each player takes their entire discard piles and shuffles them back into the deck. Afterwards, you look for 1 copy of this card and you put it back in play. Now the question is it worth it to try and build a deck around this effect? And my answer is maybe. It is a costly effect and you'll have to build the entire deck around using this strategy, but I can see it working. It has 3 soul and bodyguard, so honestly your best bet is to side attack with this to try and maybe hope for some damage, and then let your opponent destroy this during their next turn. They're going to destroy it for sure because this card has bodyguard and they're going to have to attack into it. What you can do is after that, use its crazy effect, pay everything, and you will be down 5 cards from your hand, but your opponent will have an open field. You'll have no damage whatsoever. You'll have a full deck of cards, which if you were managing your stock and stuff correctly, you might not have that many chances of being hit by a Climax. Okay, in all honesty, the 7 stock thing kind of hurts because you're putting a lot of cards back into your deck that aren't Climaxes. Hoo boy, unless those cards are Climaxes, in which case you evened out. But the point I'm trying to make is, on your next turn, you'll have 1 copy of this in play, 1 copy in the memory. You can play a full field of cards after that. You'll have no damage in your clock, so you can go bananas. You can use this Natsuki Subaru's effect to give another one of your characters +1 damage after they attack. So you attack with a full field, you get the extra damage off, and it's a potentially game-winning effect. But it's just so costly, it's hard to say that it's worth it, but it's also hard to say that it wouldn't work. Now we're finally going to take a look at some of the real waifus, okay? Most people are all about that Rem or about that Emilia, and we're going to look at 1 Rem card and 3 Emilia cards, which should pretty much tell you what side I'm on. Don't get me wrong, Rem is cute as a button, but I was saying the whole time that this set was going to come out that they were going to make Emilia more powerful than Rem 100%. And Jesus Christ, I'm going to have to read through another long effect text. Oh, let me get a drink of water real quick. If this is in play, this gets Oni, okay? When this attacks, if Smile of an Oni is in your climax zone, you can look at the top card of your deck, and if it's a Rem, Ram, or Subaru this time, we're learning, guys, you can take one of your opponent's back rows and put it on the bottom of the deck. It says level 3 or lower, but you can pretty much just take a card from their back row and put it on the bottom of the deck. They don't have any level 4 back rows, I promise. At the start of your encore step, this card kills itself. Knew that 14,000 was going to hit us somewhere. Now, when this goes to the waiting room, be it by its effect or other effects, you can discard one card from your hand and clock yourself for 1 damage. You have to have either Ram or Subaru in play, but you can take a level 3 Rem and put it in any slot on the stage. Now, we're not going to look at it here, but the level 3 that it's talking about is actually a back row character. And it's cool that you can put it in any slot of the stage, because that means you can put it in the back row where it belongs, and it's actually got some really powerful effects. So you might want to look into that if you are looking to build a Rem deck. This is pretty much your strategy, is rocking these Rem Oni forms, having them kill themselves, and then turn into the Rem that goes in your back row. So beginning our long line of Emilias. If you have 3 or more other characters with magic or weapon, this gets plus 1500 power going up to 11,000, yada yada. When the battle opponent of this card becomes reversed, you may send that character to memory. Remember, you do not want to send it to memory unless it's a card with Encore or something you know your opponent's going to save because they're doing a change combo or something. Normally, you don't want to send cards to memory, but if it's not going to be removed any other way, then you can do it with this. So on the turn you play this character, you can pay 2 stock, discard a card from your hand, and sacrifice one of your other characters. And when this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, you can put 1 Puck Great Spirit from your discard pile into play. We didn't look at Puck, it's really not that great of a card, but the whole strategy here is if you attack with this after another one of your characters is already attacked, you can sacrifice the character that's already attacked and put Puck in its place, and then you get to attack with a 4th character for the turn. Honestly, if you can manage to get 2 of these cards in play and manage to get both of their effects off, you can sacrifice off a 3rd character for the first Emilia to get 1 Puck, and then sacrifice off your other Emilia for your other Emilia that is currently attacking, and get a 2nd Puck, so you can essentially attack with 5 characters on 1 turn, which is nice. The neato petito thing about this is it doesn't require a climax combo, so it doesn't really have any restrictions. If that's really something you want to do, I don't see why it wouldn't be viable. In fact, this is probably a lot more viable than Natsuki Subaru's effect. This Emilia, or judging by the look on her face, Emo-lia. Did you guys miss me? I hope you guys miss me. When this card is played to the stage, you look at the top card of your deck, and if it's a climax, then this card cuts its wrists and kills itself. How sad. Now, the reason we're looking at this card is because if this card direct attacks, you can choose one of your opponent's level 0 or lower characters in the front row, and make it so it can't stand during your opponent's next turn. These effects can really, really hurt a deck. If your opponent's brainstorming something in the back, you can shut it down. If your opponent attacked with something really beefy, then you can make it so that that card can't attack and your opponent has to play 1 stock down because they can't attack with a full field. And if your opponent's not drawing very many cards and they only have 1 level 0 to attack with, then you could essentially just lock it down for the rest of level 0 so that it just can never attack again and becomes useless and your opponent doesn't gather any stock. Savage, Emilia. Savage. The last card we're going to look at today is Emilia Kind Emilia. The last card we're going to look at is Kind Emilia. I actually very much enjoy this card. I think this is a very good card, and I don't know if people will take full advantage of it, but I think it's pretty neat. When one of your other characters with magic or weapon attacks, this gets plus 1500 power, so if you attack with this card last in a chain of 3 attacks, it's a 10,000, pretty decent. When this attacks, if Dream of a Boy is in the climax zone, you can get plus 3,500 power on top of your other power boosts, which is pretty big. And what are you going to do with that 13,500 booty of yours? If you reverse a character, you can put it on the bottom of the deck. That's potential damage, it gets around Encore, all kinds of good stuff. Remember before when I was saying you don't want to remove cards from the game? Well, you definitely want to add them back into the deck. That is something you want to do all the time. This is a pretty decent build-up to your level 3 strategy, whether you're going to bust off into Rem, Emilia, or Subaru, and I think it's going to be a 2 to 3 staple in most blue decks. The only time I can see this not being viable is if you're already running 2 climax combos in your deck. You might not want to make room for a third just for 2 to 3 copies of this, but if you have room for that other climax combo, this is a pretty darn good effect. So here we are at the end, and what do I think of the set? To be honest, I'm very pleased with the set. I'm not quite as pleased as I wanted to be. I think I hyped myself up for it a little bit. I think that if you are an Emilia fan or a Rem fan, you got kind of screwed, because even though I do think the Emilia cards are pretty decent, I don't think blue as a color is just nearly as strong as the other 2 colors. If you really want to come at me with your awesome, never lost before, blue only, Subaru, Rem, Emilia deck, go for it. I don't doubt that people have made blue work. It does look like something that's very viable, but I feel like they gave yellow and red a lot more love than they did blue, which is weird because I'm guessing Emilia and Rem are going to be their sellers, okay? Who's really looking at Crush or Priscilla or Ram as their waifu? Get out of here with that crap, man. I mean, you're really going to be able to tell the people who are min-maxing the deck from the people who are just playing it for fun, because the people who are playing it for fun are probably going to be trying to make that Rem work, while the people who are min-maxing, trying to really maximize the potential of the deck, are probably going to be playing that yellow-red. But all that aside, I do think the set was made really well. I think it's a shame that they didn't put green in. I don't know why they chose not to do that. I think if they had green in, what they could have done was taken out, you'll probably notice I didn't really look at any of the, gosh darn it, what's his name? Betelgeuse. I didn't really get to look at any Betelgeuse cards. I didn't really look at any Roswell cards. I think it would have been great if they had taken some of the sort of villains and the other side characters and moved them into green, so that we had that option too, but they didn't, so whatever. If you're building a deck for Rem or Ram, I definitely recommend looking into red, regardless of which one you're going into. I think that red level 3 Bath Time Rem and Ram is good enough to put in really any kind of deck. If you're going for more of an Emilia build, maybe pair up Emilia with Subaru. There's some decent Subarus that I didn't really look at. If you are looking for something sort of outside of that box, I highly, highly recommend at least looking into a Reinhardt build. The reason that Reinhardt, I think, could potentially be viable right now is, from what I've been seeing online, the strategy right now is sort of build up a lot of stock, and then at level 3 just blow through all of your stock at once for just really powerful cards and effects. So what you can do is play a Reinhardt build with a lot of really like low level 0s and level 1s. Things that you know will die at level 3, but you can play consistently throughout the entire game. And you can sort of build a deck around just ignoring trying to beat your opponent at level 3. Your opponent is going to have big, beefy cards at level 3, and rather than compete with them, play around the fact that your opponent is going to beat your level 3 play no matter what. Just play Reinhardt. Your opponent, chances are, won't be able to step over Reinhardt. They're going to have to suicide other cards into it. And you'll have plenty of cards in your hand to discard for his effect. During your turn, you can still play 2 characters that are level 0s, have them attack, kill themselves off. When your opponent's turn comes up, you'll still have that big, beefy 20,000 Reinhardt booty right in the center of your field that has to take all of the attacks, deal 3 more damage, and just kind of win through there. It's probably not that good against early game decks like level 1 or level 2 decks, but against really level 3 centric decks like most decks seem to be right now, it's very viable to just let them have the level 3 spot and just play around the fact that you can totally rush them with level 0s and win the game. I'm rambling now, I apologize, it's been a while, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up now. Remember, I had to cut a lot of really good stuff from this video, so if you really want to see a second part to this, leave a like. Those things really do help us out, and it'll let me know that you guys want to see another one of these. And after we hit that 100, leave me a comment telling me that we have the 100, and I'll come back and I'll make a second part, maybe. If you have anything else you'd like to say, please leave them in the comment section below. Send me a message on Facebook. I don't have anything else set up right now, and the YouTube messaging service is kind of weird, so just sort of send me a message on Facebook, add me as a friend first so you don't get filtered. And finally, if you found this video by accident and you could sit through this entire 30-minute video without wanting to kill yourself because of my voice, then please leave me a subscribe so you can catch future videos. There haven't been a lot of videos lately, but I've been getting the place to myself a lot more lately, so there could be. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. It was a blast to come back and do another Weiss Schwarz video. Definitely looking forward to doing another one, perhaps Persona 5 or Chain Chronicle or something, and I'll see you guys next time.